Greetings, I'm Campson the Oracle. I am the founder of New Verse Live, formerly Remnants Gathering, and I am joined with Keys. She is one of the Dark Goddess University graduates who we went through a whole dark feminine healing process together. And I wanted to have her on today so that we could discuss the essence of feminine energy, its importance, and some of the ways society and trauma actually took us into existing in an energy that's not natural for us, and it's actually proven to be detrimental to our mental health and our health, as we can see. So we're going to be talking about some of these things, and we just welcome you to join us for this conversation. This is the first of series where I will be having conversations centered around mothers and women and feminine energy and some of the things that we experience and go through, and possible solutions and different perspectives as to how we can transcend the trauma that many of us are now aware that we are being called to heal. So welcome, Keys. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing good. Thank you for having me. How are you, sis?
I'm doing good. I'm excited about doing this because it's been a long journey. We really took our time all last year and worked through some deep healing. And I'm really feeling this year, I'm feeling the impact of the soul work we did last year.
hmm
How about you?
Agreed. Agreed. Definitely. We did put in a lot of work last year, and I do find a lot of those things that we delve into or dove into, they're rearing their head. They're
Mm-hmm.
definitely rearing their heads, and it is not a bad thing at all. It's going through the motions. It's getting the work. It's healing like we set out to do.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think, that's a good place to start because a lot of times when you are overwhelmed with trying to work, be a provider, be the mother, the wife, the nurturer, sometimes you just don't have the energy or time to invest in healing some of the deeper wounds,
hmm
you may have. And a lot of times in that overwhelm, you can't even wrap your mind around delving into some of the stuff that subconsciously you are dealing. So that's what I want
hmm
to shift gears with to get this conversation started, which was a quote that came to me in reading the book. One of my favorite authors, for me, I like to study men's perspective of their experience with women, and just helps me to make sure I'm saying things from more than one side. And
hmm
he said something that really I thought would be a great way for us to start this conversation. But he said in the book, I think it's called it's a guide thing. I think that was the book. He has several books, but it's a guide thing. And the Masculine Blueprint, some of the main ones that I've been reading for the past 6 years, off and on. Him, David Data, The Way of Superior Man. I'm reading The Womb Creatrix, which is a woman, and her husband helped her. So reading books created in that energy helps so much to more deeply understand why things are coming out now. Because it seemed like 10 years ago, we weren't as self-aware. So relationships probably were toxic, but it didn't feel toxic because we were just not aware, you know. So he brought this up, and this is again, this is a man speaking this, so this is not from a woman's perspective, but he's talking about the way men go into the I'm fine mode. They always okay, they always fine. Usually you ask like, how are you? And it's like, I'm fine. And he was talking about what that really means. And his quote was, ignorance or denial of your emotions will keep you trapped inside of them. It will not open your woman. Quite frankly, I feel sorry for most women having to put up with us men. Either we say we feel nothing, or we get mad and blame them, or we claim not to be mad at all and just covertly punish them with our coldness. passive aggressive behavior. Feminine people feel everything and have to learn to live with men who have no idea what to do with their emotions. They end up feeling catastrophically unmet, and we wonder why they seem to complain more and want sex less. They feel abandoned when we shut down. They feel our suppressed anger as aggression, and they feel the weakness of a man who can't simply say what he feels while staying grounded and present. This act of openly sharing what you feel inside is commonly known as being vulnerable. Because guys see these emotions as signs of weakness, to acknowledge them to yourself and others is scary. You spent your entire life building up your defenses so you didn't have to feel these emotions. So revealing them feels like you're pulling down those defenses, and thus you are literally vulnerable. But the incredibly ironic part of this is that while you may see this sharing as weakness, women see your emotional vulnerability, when done skillfully, as strength. In their eyes, only a strong man can reveal these types of feelings. It is the weak man that tries to posture and always appear rock solid and together. And remember, women feel everything, so you aren't going to fool them. You'll just be proving unworthiness. I speak from experience here. I've hesitated to share many feelings over the years with my woman, worried that she'd think less of me. Somehow, each time I do share them, she feels closer to me and opens to me. My male brain still finds it odd, but I've learned to override the instinct now. In fact, when you are authentic and vulnerable, everyone feels closer to you. What do you think about that?
I think it's pretty amazing, to be honest with you, only because I was just having this conversation night before last. And I was saying pretty much the very same things about vulnerability and toxic positivity. And I think that men will say, I'm okay, I'm good. You know, they'll give you all these positive things and try to act positive, but we as women, we can feel their energy. We know better. And we know that they're not good, even when they say that they are. So I think that a lot of it is bypassing. You know, it's bypassing as well, because if you always have this positive mindset, it never really truly allows you to deal with whatever the problem is at hand.
Mm,
And then that just kind of continuously spills over, and it causes subconscious anger and frustration, irritability, and then that affects their physical relationships, you know, with their spouse or their significant other and their children, and you know, any other environment that they have to go into on a daily basis.
absolutely. That's so true. Um, it's heartbreaking because we feel the imprisonment that they are experiencing, and
Hmm.
we want to connect with them to help them, but if they don't feel connected with those deeper emotions, then they're going to resist. And what happens, I was just talking about this as well just the other day. I was watching actually Black Lightning. I was watching Black Lightning, and it was season 1, episode 2. If you haven't watched it, I recommend it. I kind of looked over it because I'm like, the superhero thing, I'm kind of burnt out on it. But in watching it, I had this huge epiphany about the power of a man using his electrical masculine energy to
Hmm.
transmit um, the natural power, which is rooted in vulnerability. And
Hmm.
so what happens is, if they are uncomfortable with vulnerability, they will say that they're okay. That electricity of the masculine is still abundant in them. It always is.
Hmm.
Um, Energy, masculine energy naturally projects out.
Hmm.
And if they're internalizing and they don't have an outlet, a lot of times it spills out, just like you said, on us, and it's usually not intentional. It's a completely subconscious, unaware response system. And so as
Mm-hmm.
I was watching that and just seeing how he started to have these moments where he would get really frustrated, and it would start to short circuit stuff around him, and I was like, that's how it feels to a feminine being's body. A woman
Mm-hmm.
feels that inside of him. And so if you really think about it, that actually means that they lie to us pretty often about how they feel.
Yeah.
Our body is not going to feel safe because we're being lied to.
Mm-hmm.
It's it's like it's and it's this is biological, that the woman, she's not going to feel safe if her intuition is telling her something and he's telling her something else. Well, then that's unconscious gaslighting. It's I'm
Mm.
feeling what you're picking up on. So then sometimes that turns into crazy making behavior where you like, am I crazy? Maybe I'm just being over dramatic and picking up on something, but you know deep down inside your intuition is speaking to you. How
Right.
like I don't know where we can meet them halfway there. I believe that we've tried to meet them halfway for so long that that 50-50 thing is what's breaking us down, because we just
Mm-hmm.
wasn't carry all of that.
Right. Right. Um, I think that it's to me it's many factors, you know. Society, our parents in particular, they taught us how to be independent. They taught us to be just go-getters. So when we're put in positions where we're single moms or whatever the case may be, or married single moms too, um, we kind of enclose ourselves in a specific box. And then when we do go back to a partner, whether it's a relationship or a friendship of some sort, I do feel that there's a struggle there. You know, there's a struggle on the physical level, there's a struggle on the emotional, mental level.
Mhm,
So if we're not coming together, if we don't know how to really address each other, I think that's where the problem comes in.
mhm.
Um, if you're a go-getter mentality, you don't have a lot of time for bullshit. You just don't. So it's like coddling and trying to tap into this man's emotional side that doesn't really want to let you in. It's like you're fighting all the time. And that puts up that blockade. So vulnerability is something that's very, very important. And I
Yeah,
think that as women, I'm not too sure what men can do specifically. But as a woman, I feel like just kind of stepping back and understanding that vulnerability is a problem for them because society made it that way.
yeah,
It'll be a little bit easier for us to kind of maintain, but at the same time, we have to be with that partner that truly is going to sit there and listen to us, listen to those ideas that we have and put them into practice. Because
yeah.
if that doesn't work, then it's a screwed relationship, point blank, period.
That's true. Yeah. It's actually thank you, sweetheart. It's actually before you can actually bond,
Mhm.
there be that willingness for them to
Right.
bond deeper. So I get that, because when I'm in hustle and grind mode and I just got to make it happen, like that's not the time for me to even feel my feelings. Let's first,
Right.
and so, you know, what happens is, because I was thinking about this, I believe we attempted to create safety in our relation by accepting the responsibility to create the deeper bonds, and now it's breaking us down. We've known
Hmm.
how it has affected us generationally. Um,
Hmm.
you and I think that a lot of men probably want to be able to show up for us in a way where we naturally relax into our feminine. But again, the emotional self-mastery, that's a feminine characteristic.
Right.
I make them even aware of that. But we living in a man's world, we had to be in masculine energy to protect.
Hmm.
Uh,
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
so a difficult position to,
Right.
yeah, they don't know how to sustain connection. Even if they can make connection in and it's just not sustainable unless you're going deeper.
Right. And then
Yeah.
I'm wondering, and this popped into my head, with that type of thought process and mentality for men, it's obviously a specific programming. We can take this back to religion, we can take it back to patriarchy, and
Mm-hmm.
we can see how women have been treated, even with the concept of Adam and Eve and how, Eve is created from the rib of Adam, that basically puts us secondary all the time. However, we already know that it's the woman that is, the creator,
Yeah.
I always go back to genetics, the chromosomes or whatnot. It's XX and XY. So who's dominant there? It's quite obvious. So,
Ab-
there's no way for them to really, even if somebody just said that to them, I don't think that it's acceptable to them, because in their minds they believe that they're the dominant ones and they're supposed to be the head of the household and on top all the time. So that one thing does not allow them to really tap into their feminine.
mm,
They weren't allowed to, you
mm,
know. Um, Even just growing up, men are
mm,
not, well, boys aren't supposed to cry. You're not supposed to show your feelings. It starts very young with them. So when they're adults, it's kind of like that saying when they say you can't teach an old dog new tricks.
yeah.
If you've had 30, 40 years of society telling you that you're top on top, you're the dominant creature, and
Yeah.
now you enter in this relationship, and this woman is asking you to be vulnerable. It's hard for you to do that. You don't know how to do it.
Mm,
You have no clue. And then that's where we come in and we try to be savior because we want to save everybody. And then we constantly push and push and push, and then we burn ourselves out.
hmm.
Um, um, Emotionally, we're burnt out
Yeah.
as a result.
Absolutely. Which means we have less energy to invest in making those deeper connections as well.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
That's a great point to segue into um what I call post Adam syndrome, post traumatic Adam syndrome, which is if you really think about the way Adam handled story, first of all, let's start with this. It don't matter whether you're religious or not, because
Mm-hmm.
I consider myself to be religious, I consider myself to be a spiritual being. But
Uh-huh.
those stories and those archetypes create social constructs, create beliefs, and
Mm-hmm.
create the foundation of what we think a relationship means.
Right.
Um, so, it doesn't matter. Religion touched everybody. Pretty much most humans on the planet know this story of the fall and Eve and Eden with Adam and Eve. So with the post-traumatic Adam syndrome, what I find is there is a firewall that comes up, an alert system inside a man that says, I'm not safe, I'm being blamed, I'm being threatened, I'm being criticized, which means my life is at risk, and I'm going to go into the defensive mode. My ego is going to take over to protect me. And oftentimes when this is happening, you can tell that it's not conscious, it's not intentional, it's not deliberate. They don't have affirmations where they like, if my woman bring up anything that triggers something in me that I don't know how to deal with, I'm gonna just become defensive, or I'm gonna be cold. And
Mm-hmm.
like Blood was saying, I'm gonna be detached. It's not intentional. And
Mm-hmm.
that actually, I believe, makes it hurt more because, speaking from my experience, he wants to be able to connect with me, just don't have the tools and navigate.
Right.
He
Mm-hmm.
just tired to even invest in that because we live in a world where we're trying to keep up with the Jones, and now the Jones our phones 24/7. Like it's not back in the day, you would have to hear about somebody else come up story, in your town, in your city or
Right.
whatever, you trying to compete. But now it's like right there in front of us. So we have this it kind of did an injustice to us because we can see what's missing at all times and any time of the day and start comparing our relationship to other people's relationships. But one thing that,
Hmm.
that everybody seems to be dealing with, and I'm sure everybody really broad, but I mean, most people in relationships, if we look at statistics, a lot of women are choosing to be single, they're choosing to not have children and start families anymore because of a lot of the detrimental effects of the patriarchy, of religion, and many other social constructs that told us that we were second to them. We are the weaker vessel.
Right.
So I actually, let me see. I wrote something and I want to share this and see what you think about it.
Okay.
Okay, let's see. Here it is. I was up writing all morning. I was just so inspired by it. But it says that men blame women for so many things, just like Adam did with Eve. Men struggle to be accountable when shit go wrong, but they want to take credit when things reflect success because it makes them feel adequate. This is often rooted in their fear of being seen as inadequate or unable to control or manage their woman, manage their house. This is a subconscious program, which means most men have no idea that they are trying to regain the sense of power that was taken from them by the social constructs in which we are becoming aware of its impacts on each of us as we are awakening. The patriarchy, rooted in biblical teachings, led men to believe their daughters and their women are nothing more than property to be owned and controlled. The dowry is a perfect example of this. Men have been brainwashed to feel entitled lead households by whatever code they choose without actually considering the feminine's ability to intuit the best approach for relationships.
Yeah. It's I definitely, agree with that. Because they really just don't have a clue. They really don't have a clue. And it's
Mhm.
like you want to be mad at them, but then again, you don't want to be mad at them because you have to understand that there is a reason behind everything. And I think what it just allows you to do is to just be human.
Mhm.
Be human and not be judgmental.
Mhm.
Um, Not to say that you give things passes. Some things you have to give a pass to,
Yeah.
but there are other things that you shouldn't. Um, I think that at the end of the day, this is going to be something that we deal with for eons and eons and eons. It's just a matter of individual takes and what you're willing to go through with that other person, what you're, willing to, work on together. And that's what partnership is about. So for the women that are able to find that individual and they're able to, find that male that's receptive, obviously if he's receptive of, changing, then he is tapped into his feminine energy, then she has a winner.
Yeah.
But if you have somebody that's just so gun ho and, maintaining that complete masculine energy, then you gotta go. You just have to leave them where they are. But I think, like I said, ultimately it's just about coming to the conclusion that this shit ain't gonna get any better unless we each take looks at ourselves in the mirror and then, put forth some effort.
Mm.
And it's going to be on both sides because the old paradigm is coming to a close. So if it's coming so close, we understand that men will be on the bandwagon at some point. When, who the hell knows? But my hope is that it becomes more and more apparent with them, which I think it is. And I think that's probably the reason why there's so much pain that's showing up too.
Yes.
Because if it wasn't, if things weren't on the brink of changing, they would just go on day to day, like everything's all copacetic, but it's not happening like that. They're going through it and it's all for a design purpose. And so I think we're getting to that point where it's coming to a head and change is it's definitely on its way.
Yeah. As
And
I,
it, mhm,
yeah, because it's like a purge,
right,
Our
right.
healing cycles have this a cycle of detox of purge,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
um, which is for our benefit. But again, it's ironic because when you think who usually puts the most effort into relationships, most of the time it is the woman.
mm-hmm,
Um, and I wrote something, a quote that I've been really pondering on, which was based in a belief that I think most women can relate to, and probably were also told that this was the way to have a healthy relationship, which was based on a woman's ability to keep her man. And I
mm-hmm,
started of what does that really mean? And what came to me was a woman who only lives to keep a man is guaranteed to lose herself,
mm-hmm,
lose themselves while trying to keep their man because we have been programmed to believe that the relationship's glue is our responsibility.
mm-hmm.
What you think about?
Agreed.
It?
I could attest to some of those things, back in the past in early relationships in my 20s, you always wanted to make sure that person had
Mhm.
sex all the time. And, you would go out of your way to cook meals and, make them really special and, do all these special things. And while you're just sitting back trying to figure out, like, damn, you brought
Yeah.
me to the movies. You just brought me out to dinner. We give so much and they do so little.
Hmm.
And it's like, when do we wake up and see that that's not the key? Because at the end of the day, when you do all those things, shit, he can see the next best thing coming and then drops you like, tamale, and then you're left looking crazy and then you feel some type of way about yourself. Like, what did I do wrong? I should have did this more. And it's like, no, it's not even that.
Yeah.
It's just that you should have set boundaries to begin with and
Yeah.
not try to, you know, buy someone's attention or buy someone's affection by the things that you do. So like now I don't go above and beyond. I'll do, special things, sweet things. Don't get me wrong. But if you're not meeting me, if you're not doing all these great things for me, I'm
Hmm.
not going to do it for you. Point
Hmm.
blank, period. Because I need you have to match my energy basically. And if you're not matching my energy, then I'm just not going to be putting forth the effort for you because you're not doing it for me.
Yeah.
And that's in romantic relationships or any relationships really, but considering we're talking about relationships, yeah. It's not going to be me standing on my feet cooking all day. Now, if I choose to do that, that's what I choose to do. Um, but I'm not just gonna do that every single day and you're sitting on the sofa and not doing anything, just having this expectation that just because I am the woman, this is my duty to just do everything in the household. It's just really not fair. But, women as women, we do have a responsibility for that because we didn't set boundaries. Something
Yeah.
that we accepted.
Yeah.
We
Absolutely.
accepted on the premise of this is how you keep a man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A colloquialism about them keeping us. You,
Hmm. Hmm.
I remember feeling that pressure. I remember feeling like I can't have boundaries in a
Hmm.
relationship. If I
Hmm.
do, keep my man.
Right. Right. If I'm not cooking every day, he's going to leave me for somebody that does. If I'm
If
not
I
opening my legs every day, he's going to leave me for somebody that does.
yeah, exactly, and which takes me to the next point. That was just a perfect segue into the next thing that I feel is so important as we are learning to shift into owning our power of our femininity, the power of choice, and the power to use boundaries so we are able to nurture our own selves, meet our own needs versus expecting them to meet our needs, which was another subconscious program in that a woman has to meet a man's needs, especially his sexual needs, because if you don't, then he's going to find it somewhere else. And I feel like that goes both ways. But having boundaries, I was afraid to have boundaries. As a recovering codependent, I felt like boundaries had a subconscious communication that I was selfish and that I was incapable of compromise. And it was actually a complete opposite. So what I was writing about boundaries this morning for this particular show, this is what came to me. Boundaries create our value. They create our sense of self-worth. We must create boundaries around the way we treat ourselves to change the way others treat us. You can't change the way others treat you until you have pivoted the way you treat yourself. We also, so this goes back to self-care. The more that you invest in taking care of yourself, people will match that for eventually, hopefully, if we're moving organically, that frequency will be matched. They will notice, okay, she is really taking care of herself. She's not going to tolerate, I see the way she take care of herself. So it's like a cue. It's like a cue that you're giving that this is my standard and this is what I know that I'm worth, which is where looking at the way self-care is like being weaponized right now and turned against us, where feminine empowerment is just about the veneer, the external self-care, but it's the internal self-care, and that's boundaries, because without it, you give all of your power away, and of course you're going to feel victimized in a relationship with the masculine because you have not been able to create boundaries to step outside of that codependent caretaking mindset. So what do you think about that?
Um, yeah, I'm a Taurus sun and a Scorpio rising, Leo moon. So it's all about values and it's all about transformation for me. When you are clear on what your values are, then that's the only point in time when you're able to set boundaries. Because
Mm,
if you don't have your personal moral compass or your value system, you're all over the place. So you
mm,
don't know what boundaries you need to set. But for me personally, like over the past year, I know I've really been focused on what specific things truly mean to me, and their hierarchy in my mind, in my spirit. So boundaries have been much more important because I've been a single mom for, since I was what, I don't know, 19. So I've always done every single thing. And so now I'm at a point where it's like, okay, I can't do everything.
mm,
You know, son, I can't make your sandwich right now. Okay, you see me doing X, Y, and Z. So what you need to do is go get your stuff, make your
mm.
own sandwich.
Yeah,
My significant other, he makes comments like, oh, I'm hungry, blah, blah, blah. That's
yeah,
okay. All right. Sometimes it's in one ear and out the other because it has to be. I can't stop what I'm doing to tend to everybody else's needs because at the end of the day, if I'm washing clothes, if I'm cooking, if I'm doing all of these things at once, it's very infrequent that somebody says, hey, do you need some help?
yeah,
Do you need me to do something? You go and you cook a meal, and not every time somebody says thank you. Not
Yeah.
every time that somebody says, "Oh, that was really, really good." We miss those moments. So when you look at these things, you have to say to yourself, "Okay." And it's not that they don't appreciate it, because
Yeah.
I really do believe that they do, but
Yeah.
it's just not always said. And I think for feminine energy, we need to hear it because we
Yeah.
put so much work into it. So that's what led me to just really just set boundaries with everybody. Like, if you see me busy, and even if I'm not busy, if I'm sitting on my ass,
Mhm.
because I feel like it's warranted with everything that I do in this home. If I'm sitting on my ass, don't expect me to get up to do anything because
Because
I won't want to do it.
exactly. Woo! Cool. It's true because knowing where to set boundaries, especially it goes back, okay, we can talk about the post-traumatic Eve syndrome where
Hmm.
I gotta make sure that I'm keeping my man happy, that I'm abiding by all of the rules and regulations that I've been given. I can't make any conscious sovereign choices. I can only eat from this tree. It started really early for us getting this programming
Right.
that
Hmm.
boundaries is not something we're allowed to even have. Young girls who just started their cycles in what we would call the Old Testament are familiar with, they couldn't even choose their husband, and the highest bidder who was willing to pay the dowry was usually who got the daughter. Like that story alone, reading that to your daughter, like what are you teaching her?
Right.
And we can't be surprised at what we see happening now. And so that was an interesting point that you made about knowing where, because I didn't know where to begin. And so working with the Lilith type, to me, Lilith is a dark feminine essence that embodies her right to sovereignty, her right to choice, and her right to
Hmm.
do what she feels is best for her. So work
Hmm.
or help me to create boundaries. Everybody has a different way, but for me, being able to connect to some other mythology, some other
Hmm.
story allowed my consciousness to see that there is another way.
Right. Right. And Lilith, she's definitely been very helpful for me in that right as well, because once you start working with her, she'll get you right.
Mhm.
She'll make you have this attitude like, look, don't sit your ass down. This is my time. I'm going to do what it is that I need to do. And, if I feel the need to assist you at that point, I will.
Mhm.
you know? And speaking on self care, I tend to listen to, I can't remember the name of the music that you sent to me a while ago. Yes, like when I do self care, listening to that, it's on a whole nother level. Even though it's the external things that I'm working on at that moment, like lotioning my body or whatever, it's done in such a sensual way because she forces that in the moment. And with that in itself, it shifts your focus internally because you're really, really stepping up and you're really taking that time out for yourself and, you know, taking care of yourself. And that's one of the things that as women, we don't really get the chance to do because we're always taking care of everybody else's needs. And then when we're done with everybody else's needs, at the end of the day, it's like, man, there aren't any more hours in a day.
Yep.
Now the only thing that I really have time to do is just take a shower, take care of, quick little personal care needs and go to sleep and then do it all over again, which is so unfortunate because we really just need more time for ourselves and we're not taking it. As a medical professional, I see a lot of women, and this is women from all races. This is not just one over the other. No, it's everybody. And they all say the same thing that, I'm not really taking care of myself like I should.
Mhm.
I'm taking care of the kids. I'm taking care of, my partner. I'm taking care of my parents or whomever. And then I don't have any time for myself.
Yeah.
And they don't even know what to do. to
Oh,
even make time for themselves.
yeah,
And I try to give them pointers. I'm like, start with a massage or run some water, sit in a tub and soak. Sit in the car, listen to music. I'm having to give them these ideas because they're not able to think about them for themselves.
it's
They're not
true.
able to think about it. Their
Mm,
minds are pretty cluttered. They're depressed. They're anxious. You know what I mean? So it doesn't allow you to basically function on all cylinders. So, that's how I'm able to help guide them. And through them too, I'm able to help myself continuously as well because shit, sometimes I forget.
yeah.
Sometimes I do forget because I do, as a profession, I'm taking care of people's needs throughout the day,
Mm,
as well. And this is Monday through Friday, and it can be difficult. And especially when you're an empath and you're taking on everybody's energy too. So, it's just hard being feminine energy
yeah,
dominant. Like it's just hard being us. There's no way of getting around that.
it's true. That's a great point because as a feminine dominant being who is super empathic and a natural caretaker and in the profession of helping people to transform their lives and transcend their traumas, I also had to realize that I needed boundaries, not just as a woman, but as an empath, I needed boundaries. And for me, nothing was really allowing me to embody that except for working with the dark feminine energy, studying the dark goddesses. It helped me to see, okay, in order for me to embody this, for this to not just be head knowledge, but for me to actually live this way and embrace this energy, this new way of being, I have to accept the fact that I'm probably going to piss some people off who are used to me taking care of everything and being willing to shoulder the weight of the world on my back and make it look like,
Mm-hmm.
burnout,
Right.
autoimmune disease, the reproductive illnesses, breast cancer. It has been proven that these things are rooted in the emotional unmet needs and the disharmonious social
All right.
which is geared towards the masculine being the survivor. And so
Right.
I realized in order for me to create more harmony in my life, I also needed to have boundaries around my conversations as an empath, because a conversation with an empath is not like a conversation with anybody else. You're going to feel seen, you're going to feel heard, and it's a superpower. And anything that is a superpower must be protected. It must have boundaries. And unfortunately, society has programmed us to reject the dark feminine. And dark feminine, for anybody who don't know, is the energy that is more like alpha female energy. It's assertive. It's I know what I want and need. I know what I deserve. I know my worth. I know who I am, and you may not fully know because this is a journey. No one ever fully arrives. But as you are self realizing and self actualizing and self deifying yourself as a woman, becoming the divine feminine, sitting on her throne, wearing her crown, an empath is the intuitive ability to read energy, to receive energy from the cosmos. And you have to have boundaries. And yes, it may be uncomfortable at first. Even the kids might not be used to it and be like, look, usually I ask you to do something and you do it just like that. Like lately, mom, what's going on? And it helps to prepare your mind. I remind myself to say, it's okay if you're not okay with the way that I am changing, the way I show up. It's okay. You're entitled to feel however you feel as a result of this, because I have put myself last so much by putting you first. I have taught you that me being last is acceptable, that it's okay. And your expectations and sense of entitlement is something I have to take accountability for as well. So is that something that's relatable to you? Like, what do you think about?
Definitely. Definitely. I totally agree. There was something that you said earlier too, the ability to just say no.
Mhm.
That's something that women find very hard to do because they're trying to please, everyone. Um, and that's one thing that I ask my patients, when they come in and they're, having these concerns regarding, their depression or their anxiety or feeling burnt out. I'm like, well, do you ever say no?
Yeah.
And they always say no. And, it's unfortunate. And, I give them grace, and I can just identify because I've been there. But I also know that society is the reason why we are the way that we are. We were conditioned to just be
Yeah.
yes, 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 people. you know, and by us saying yes all the time, we put ourselves on the back burner. And
Yeah.
now that we're coming to a point where we're saying more, or at least attempting to, or getting just outright frustrated.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I think that, everybody else, like you said, around us, they're not able to understand that. And, some are not going to be able to accept it. Relationships will fail because of it. Children will separate from their mothers because of it. But at the end of the day, it's like this. If you're not going to be able to accept that, then we will have to part ways, because I'm not going to continue to be a
Yeah.
doormat. I'm not going to continue to be used. And, it's kind of like, oh, it goes back to that saying, I came into this world by myself. I'll leave by myself,
Yes. Absolutely.
because it's my journey. And, I'm learning lessons just like everybody else. And if my lessons are going to take me to the point of realization that, I am worthy, and, I should be able to live life and live it more abundantly without the unnecessary stresses. I'll take that. I'll take that alone.
Yeah.
I'll take that alone. I'm no longer afraid to be alone. And a lot of women are just afraid to be alone. So they continue to deal with just bullshit.
Hmm. I think that that takes me, it's just so beautiful because we did not go over what we were going to do. Like everything that you're saying is in the exact order of what is more mind blowing. Um, this is the ability for the feminine to connect with each other telepathically like this. Like this is
Right.
just incredible. We are so powerful and so blessed. But what I wrote was we must have boundaries around the kinds of conversations we have internally and externally. Otherwise, we'll fall into a cycle of endlessly complaining and misery for always saying yes, even when our body is saying no. The less time we spend discussing how bad we've been treated, the healthier our conversations can become. Attention goes where energy flows. Sandwich venting between things we are grateful for to break the habit of chronic complaining. Venting is healthy, and as long as you give it an expiration date. By using boundaries around venting, we transform our conversations into positive investments for our desired future. Boundaries around loyalty are also important. Loyalty must have a reason and a season. Otherwise, we end up being loyal to people that may or may not share that same loyalty with us. Loyalty is healthy when it has an expiration date as well, because certain behaviors dictate who you remain loyal to. Boundaries around our energetic investment are necessary for a healthy lifestyle. Burnout is a sign that someone hasn't established energetic boundaries or someone that doesn't stick with the boundaries they set. Anyone that treats us better than we treat ourselves or worse than we treat ourselves is a reflection of a subconscious program desiring to be healed. And that was just, I wrote that this morning.
Amazing. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah,
What you said.
beautiful. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we're gonna get into one of our last points.
Mm-hmm.
But would you say that this one way to transcend this particular generational trauma is by teaching our daughters how to say no without feeling guilty for saying no? How important is that to you?
Very important. It's very important because if we don't ever get to that point of being comfortable with saying no, we're just going to continue to be in the situation that we are in as women. We're going to
Mm,
continue to be, overworked, stressed, overburdened, um, lack of self esteem, lack of self confidence.
mhm.
Because I just feel like when you're constantly just giving, 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 we're naturally receivers. And if
Yeah,
we're giving, 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 we don't we don't really have time to just sit and be who we were intended to be,
right.
you know. So I will tell my girls to say no, and don't be nasty about it. You don't have to be nasty about it, but you can just sweetly say no, and you don't even have to give a reason for saying no.
No,
That's the thing.
that's the thing.
Um, um, so it's imperative that we teach them this.
Yeah.
Because if we don't, destruction is around the corner.
Mhm.
Continued destruction, because it's been going on for a while when it comes to the feminine dominant species on this planet. Um, but with what is going on in the world now, we see that the powers that be, and I'm not talking about the human race or whatever species of people that are here. I
Mhm.
mean, like the universe. I mean, like Mama Earth. I mean, like the dark
Yes.
feminine energies here. They're going to wreak havoc
Hmm.
because they're not going to continue to stand by. Even if we stand by and not do anything, they're not going to continue to stand by and let it happen anymore. I don't feel that way. Um, and we can see that with just the chaos that's picking up right now. Like
Hmm.
this sucker is crumbling, and it's all, to me, it's all the work of the divine mother and the dark goddess energy,
I
because
agree.
this shit has to stop.
It does. It does because what happens is um we have we're like what maybe the third generation I would say of people who listen to music, which is musicians or magicians. Music is
Mm-hmm.
of programming. It is a form
Mm-hmm.
using chant words, which is sorcery. It embeds the mind. It also triggers certain emotions. We created memories with certain songs and music, and as time went on, the music got more and more just disrespectful towards.
Mm-hmm.
And now we can see collectively, especially with female rappers, that masculinity, that toxic masculinity, has been internalized, and
Mm-hmm.
the music has a tendency to hold this violent, over aggressive, tone to it because women have internalized the way that we, have been mistreated and used and raped and pillaged. And and I'm not saying that it's not a time and place for certain things, and whether
Mm-hmm.
it however you like to have your sensual time. It might be a little on the rough side, but if you really look at it, music has romanticized rape.
Right.
And I listen to female rappers, and sometimes the beat, I'm like, I really like this beat, like there's pop of it. I'm like, this is really sad that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay, sweet. Go ahead and get you a snack, and I'll be done in about 5 minutes. And so what it is doing is the feminine rebirth that's occurring on the planet as we have went into the womb space of higher consciousness and being given an opportunity to come out of the false womb matrix and to truly be with ourselves and our trauma and heal. The other side, the quote unquote powers that be, are going harder and harder, and now they're giving more record deals to female rappers that speak in this way. And I
Hmm.
think causing women to take on toxic masculinity to the point of it being fatal. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
And, you know, it, you already, you know, pretty much the signs of the times. You know, if you see where all these rappers are popping up, they're female. Because back in the day, there was like a few, very little. And now it's like they're all over. And
yeah,
you're right, with the catchy beats and everything, that's how they lure you in. You're not really listening to the words of the song because half the time you can't even make it out anyways, but it's the beat that catches you. So it's like this programming that takes place. But when you see the rise and things like this, then you got to know on the flip side that there's another energy at play. There's something positive on the rising. And this is like their counterattack to that. But it's not going to work. It's not going to work.
it's
Mama's going to come through here and do what she needs to do and clearly open our eyes. So,
absolutely, absolutely.
yeah.
That's so true. This was a really, really beautiful way to meet and have this conversation. I wanted to do this for Mother's Day. Every year, I want to give something back to women and mothers because we have, even if you're not a biological mother and you mother in energy, maybe you have foster kids or you took custody, of siblings or something, like just being able to tap into that feminine energy, I believe, is the key component to us continuing to transcend these traumas and turn trauma into triumph. It doesn't have to stay there. And I often say generational curses are opportunity for us to be the blessing our bloodline needed. And I really believe that and operate in that. So no matter what happens in my life, I feel supported by the feminine and I feel her energy. And I honor Mother Earth, for supporting us to have this experience. And I believe that we are definitely shifting the paradigm in a way that's it's just it's nothing that could be done about it. These are the laws of the universe at play. This is Mayat bringing the harmony and the balance between the scales. So before we close out, with that being said, I wanted to do something that I call fill in the blanks. And I would like for you to fill in the blank as we go out with something that is hopefully going to be empowering to someone that might be watching this. And so this is a little game that I play with myself to it helps me to be more deliberate in my speaking, being able to speak things that allow me to transcend a lot of the effects of the English language, which we know it is rooted in so much psychological enslavement, but being able to use my words more consciously and
Mhm.
bypass this is what I use. So to fill in the blank of this,
Okay.
if, um, as an empowered woman determined to teach her daughters the power of saying no and choice, I will blank.
Mm. Teach her how to love herself first.
Mm,
I believe that
mm,
if you know how to love yourself in your entirety, the good, the bad, the ugly, and then it makes you fully aware of your boundaries,
mm,
your values, your morals, everything. And so when you step out into the world, you know what you're going to accept and you know what you're not going to accept. There's no ands, ifs, or buts about it, you know? Because I think the main thing is this: when you don't truly love every version of yourself, because you don't really know who you are, um, that's where the problem starts.
Mm.
That's where the problem starts. Society has taken us outside of ourselves. So we are not tapped into the internal parts of ourselves. So we don't fully love ourselves as a result. But I
Mm.
feel that when you really, really know who you are, you can really love yourself and you don't take anything from anybody else that's harmful, anyways. You won't accept it. So, yeah.
That's powerful. I could have not answered that better. And that was my fill in the blank as well, to teach her how to love herself.
Right. Right.
So, all right. Well, in this episode, we thank y'all so much for joining us for these conversations. I intend to have more of these conversations. I have had so many women that inspired me, and recently listened to Yanla Van Zant have the discussion about, toxic masculinity and how women programmed to be men in dresses and skirts, literally. Um, it really gave me clarity as to something that I would be able to share with the world from my experiences with other women who are on this journey of self love as well. So we thank you for joining us. And if you would like to connect with more information, all of the information will be in the description for you. All right. Man, your third eye has
Right. Just in case.
no stay. One love, Ashe.